Everyone, welcome to Acanthus and Crest. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at two semi-identical Parian porcelain or statuary porcelain figurines, each made by a different company, depicting the same subject. And we'll be looking at some of the hallmarks of quality, some of the things you can look at in terms of artistic quality to assess your Parian porcelain. Let's check it out. So first of all, in terms of subject matter, what you're seeing here are two renditions in porcelain of an original marble by Jean-Jacques Pradier, also known as J.J. Pradier, also known as James Pradier, depicting Psyche from the classic mythological story of Cupid and Psyche. This is a highly popular subject in the neoclassical era, representing romantic love, sort of a fairy tale style to it, but also symbolic of the connection between love and the individual soul or the mind. And thus it was popular subject matter in writing as well as in art throughout the 19th century for sure. Pradier sculpted a large, I think it was almost life-size marble that is now in the Louvre, and these are porcelain copies that were made probably also in the 19th century, maybe the later 19th century, by two different companies, and showing different artistic aspects, which we'll be looking at in the video. All right, so to begin our assessment of these two pieces, let's start at the bottom. This one obviously has more of a pedestal. It's done in the classical style, looks sort of like a column or a capital of a column. So it's a nice addition. We actually like this aspect of it the most of both of these pieces. However, because of that, you'll notice that even though they are the same height, the figure, therefore, on the right is smaller because the pedestal gives her the extra height to equal the height of the one on the left. So if you're thinking that a larger figure is better than the one on the left is superior, but if you like this additional base, that's definitely a selling point. Now let's take a look at the feet. This figure here on the left has what's known as the classical foot. You'll see that the three middle toes are roughly the same length. Then you have a tiny pinky toe there that's curved over, and then you have the big toe, which is shorter than the middle three toes. This is unusual anatomy, but it's typical of classical sculpture, which shows attention to detail. The toes are also very clearly incised, so you can see each one distinguished from the one next to it, which shows original artistry in the original sculpture that was cast. If we look at the foot in this case, it's not as distinct. The toes have more of a standard progression of height. The pinky toe is still small, but the three middle toes are more up and down or progressing toward the big toe. So not the classical foot. And also the toes are not as incised nor as finely carved out. So you can't really see the individual distinctions, more like a paw in a sense than a foot. This one has more delicacy because of the way it's been delineated. We take a look at the little stepping stool here, a footstool. You'll also notice that little arches are kind of even, they're essentially even. They're cleanly separated from one another and look like they're neat and architectural. In this case, the arches are less even, they're smaller, they're kind of done more roughly, and therefore not as well crafted as the other. It's just similar to the toes. If we move up to the drapery, in both cases, the drapery is pretty good. They're almost equivalent. But in this case, I think you'll see a little bit more contrast. And again, similar to the toes, more defined folds. Here, the folds are softer and more pillowy. Not necessarily a fault, but again, not as detailed as in this case. Though they have a similar number of folds And if you didn't see them side by side, you might not notice that distinction. Moving up here, you'll notice more attention paid to the anatomy here, where the cloth or the drapery meets the body. Here, there's just essentially a straight line, or just a line. You don't see the same attention to the shape of the anatomy there. Perhaps the most obvious distinction between the two would be the handling of the butterfly or moth. Psyche's name means butterfly or moth in Greek, and Psyche is said to represent the soul, and so Psyche studying the moth or butterfly represents a sort of self-examination of one's soul from a philosophical or allegorical perspective. Therefore, the butterfly is important. Antonio Canova was the first to show Psyche examining the butterfly, and then subsequent to this, other artists copy that theme, and this Pradier piece is a direct reference to the Canova work. If we look at the butterfly here, it's fairly large and actually has little details of dots on the wings. And the butterfly has a body. You could argue that the way it's attached to the arm is a little bit sloppy. Well, I think that's supposed to be the body of the moth or butterfly, but it is at least large and apparent given its importance in the story. Here, the moth or butterfly is not as sharply indicated, also smaller. But the main issue with this one is that Psyche is not really looking at the butterfly, right? She's looking kind of this way. The butterfly is all the way up here. In this case, her head is turned a little bit more, and she's arguably looking at the butterfly in this one, at least definitely more than in this case. The way her head is turned also, the position of the neck and the head is more artful than in this case, where it's just sort of there. And then the position of the hand, the right hand reaching across, as if she's about to touch the butterfly or reach for it. In Canova's original sculpture, Psyche's actually holding the butterfly in her hand, so that interaction of the hand and the butterfly is important. Here, the hand is not really anywhere close to the butterfly, so we don't know. I mean, she's gesturing like she might reach for it, but she's not as close to it as in this case. So this one, again, more attention to the interaction of looking, the direction of the neck, the hand reaching, and the position of the butterfly on the arm all come together as a coherent artistic representation of the self-examination of one's individual soul. Here, we don't have that same triangular interaction of hand, butterfly, and head position. So this one definitely superior in terms of the artistry because of that. You might be able to see as well, the face is more carved or incised, more detailed. Here it's softer and less defined. And then lastly, the hair. I think on the camera you can see as well from the contrast, the darks and lights. This is more deeply carved out on the original that was used to cast this piece. You can see the detail of the hair there. Here the hair is visible. There is a hairstyle, but very much uniformly whitish, meaning that it's not as deeply cut out or not as deeply sculpted as in this case. So we originally bought this piece at auction. Didn't see particularly any issues with it, except for the fact that she doesn't appear to be looking at the butterfly directly. When we saw this one come up for sale, we knew immediately that it was superior to this, particularly because of that aspect. But in terms of the overall style and the rendering of the Parian, we bought this one as a replacement for that. So there are many Parians still available at auction and at antique shops. You can find a number of them. Be sure to check out the quality and look for things like what was mentioned in this video to help you choose whether you want it and how much to pay. If you found that useful, like the video and follow Acanthus and Crest. And we look forward to offering you more information on classical art, antiques, sculpture, and more. Thanks for viewing.